Welcome to the very first edition of Energy Broker Academy, the podcast. My name is Ryan Dickie with RCD Consulting Services, here with my partner Max Rice from Energy CX. I'm the president and founder of RCD Consulting Services, and I'm partnered with Energy Connection. We do business together on the broker side of the energy world. And this is our podcast where we bring you content on the energy industry. We give you broker secrets. We keep you informed on what's going on the political end of things, and also keep you up to date on what's going on in the market so you can effectively consult your clients. So today we're going to talk about the Democratic debate from earlier this week. Max is going to take lead on that. I'm going to dive into the natural gas market a little bit, help you guys understand why we're seeing an increase in storage and production, and we're seeing cheap prices right now. So Max, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody, and then let's just jump right into the Democratic debate earlier this week.
Thanks, Ryan. And Ryan's being very humble. He's the man in the very new industry of energy deregulation. My name is Max. My first word was light, and I haven't shut up about energy ever since. I'm the operations manager for Energy CX, and I'm also on the board of Energy Professionals of Illinois, fighting for better policy in Illinois. And I also ran for Congress. I was a top 4 finisher in that race. Pretty big deal. No, just kidding. But let's talk about energy. I'm very excited today because not often energy is in the news, but often there's a long discussion about it. And in the Democratic debate, they dedicated at least like 20 minutes to energy. And even though they all were with the same party, I'm not going to take a partisan take, there were like distinct differences between the candidates. So I kind of wanted to go over them. I took some notes. I emailed them to myself. I took out all the swear words. And I want to give you my take, and Ryan, I want your opinion. And
it was a very entertaining debate, to say the least.
Very
there's a lot
entertaining.
going on.
Yeah.
But we'll focus on the energy policy side. But if you want a good laugh, and you want to see some folks go at it, maybe YouTube the highlights of the debate.
Yeah, if you want to work on being a bully, there's some good tips and good insults in there. No, it was a really fun debate. But on energy, it was deep hidden in the insults. There was a 20-minute talk on energy, and I'll put the YouTube clip in the highlights in the link to this video. And Mayor Bloomberg, who's new to the race, people in New York know about him, but nationally not too much known unless you watch YouTube or TV. Probably saw his ad 10 times this day. But he took the lead on energy, and he's very knowledgeable on the subject. But he got a lot of criticism for his performance, like his mannerisms. And he talked about the way that he talked about coal, I thought was disrespectful. He bragged about shutting down coal plants. It's kind of weird for a presidential candidate to brag about shutting jobs. I get intellectual conversation about coal, but he literally was just like, shut down 20 plants abroad. We're going to shut down plants here.
I mean, great for our environment, but
no plan
for Americans' jobs,
Yeah, and price of energy itself, because that is a third of our load. And so I'm okay with getting rid of coal, but you need to talk about the repercussions and talk about that transition. And a lot of the people that I'm in the camp that the transition is actually closer to 100 years, not 10 years. Vaclav Smil is a good author and speaker and professor on that subject. But so that was one thing. Then he says he wants to get back into the Paris Agreement. And my problem with the Paris Agreement is that it's a non-binding deal. And so I'm just not for signing deals that there's no consequences if you don't follow. So we could sign it, not sign it. I don't understand that it's a big deal. And you can criticize Trump. Yes, that was. And then the third thing he talked about was that negotiating with China. He doesn't want to go to war with them. He doesn't want to do a hard stance with them, but he wants to negotiate with them. And in my mind, I was thinking, well, yeah, sure, because China produces, I wrote down the stat here, over 90% of solar panels are produced in China, and over 73% of lithium-ion batteries are mined, lithium cells are mined in Africa that China has control over. And so that's going to be a pretty easy negotiation from China's side. We'll go green because we'll make a ton of money. And honestly, it is worse for the environment on a carbon output. And I think that's a pretty interesting concept that no one really talks about, because the solar panels themselves are made out of fossil fuels. They're made in China. You're shipping them in a boat across the ocean, dumping fossil fuel into the ocean. And then you get off you get to America, you put them on a truck, fossil fuel, like take them into the middle of nowhere, just fossil fuel leaking everywhere, slab
Yep.
some concrete, more like fossil fuel equipment, kill the habitat, and then put some ugly solar panels up. But
Right.
I digress a little bit. Yeah, no, solar isn't. I'm not completely against solar, but people do need to understand that it is an intermittent power, and there are some cons because you got to recycle the things too. And
Right.
yeah, that's an easy segue into Biden, because Biden's whole thing was he bragged about a solar subsidy that failed. He was bragging about solar panels in Nevada that didn't work out. And once again, I'm not completely against solar. And his whole thing is that we need to just transition completely to solar and wind. And that's not smart because both of them are intermittent powers. And no matter how much we spend on technology, we're not going to get the sun to shine more and the wind to blow more.
And yeah, and I think it's important to note, as you mentioned, there's still emissions involved with, solar,
Yeah.
right? We're not completely clean because we're generating our power from solar and wind. Everything that you just explained in the process of getting solar to a position to where it can actually, create power is having an impact on the environment. So not only from a cost perspective is that maybe not the best route, it's definitely not, our best option for limited emissions either.
Yeah, and I just want to have that conversation because personally, I think it's just give and take. Like if you're in an area with a lot of sun or a lot of wind, yeah, you do solar and do wind. And personally,
Yeah.
I think the future is space solar. Put a solar panel into space where the sun is shining 100% and beam it down to Earth. So that'd be really cool. But the one thing that
Absolutely.
wasn't mentioned by anyone that's crazy because they all want to get to 100. I'll go into Klobuchar and Warren. They all want to get to carbon neutral. I think every single one wants to get carbon neutral by 2050, and they want to do that. And none of them mentioned nuclear energy, and a lot of them are actually against it. And that to me is crazy because nuclear is the only way to get to carbon neutral in a fast time.
Yep.
And another thing is, I think carbon neutral, I wrote down, is kind of like a no carb diet. I think low carbon would be better.
Yes.
Do you want negative yeah, you need to breathe. Yeah, so no
Right.
one talks about nuclear, which is the pound for pound king of energy. There are some
Yep.
negatives, but thorium, I'll put some in the links, is something to research, which would shorten the half-life. The big problem with nuclear is it has a long half-life. And no one talks about planting trees. The most time-tested way to fight carbon, another carbon capture technology. And no one mentioned.
So what would you say, typically is people's resistance to nuclear power? Because
Chernobyl, and also there's a big misconception between nuclear power and nuclear weapons, bombs.
right.
Completely different. And a good argument I think sways people is if you look at South Korea and North Korea. South Korea, they used to be one country split, and America said to South Korea, hey, we won't let you have nuclear weapons, but you could have nuclear energy, and they went nuclear energy, and they're doing great. A lot of technology there, a lot of thriving economies. Have a little corruption, but it's a great country. North Korea, we said you can't have. They decided they wanted nuclear weapons. They didn't want nuclear energy, and look what's going on in North Korea. Right. What do they have to show for that? They just have a few demonstrations every season and can threaten the world. But the people are struggling. And another global country, what's called case study I like to look at is Germany and France. Because Germany took the Joe Biden approach, the wind and solar, where they increased spending on wind and solar. And they actually, in 1 year, they produced less energy from wind and solar despite increasing the amount of solar panels because the sun shined less and there was less wind. And they required more natural gas and oil because it's an intermittent power. So when it's night or early morning, they still need this. The people are still using. That's what we kind of don't address. Is there's still a demand? Yep. People are still we're not Amish.
Right.
Nothing against the Amish. Yeah. But so they have that demand, and it creates a situation where they either need to create natural gas or buy from hostile countries like Russia. Nord Stream 2 pipeline is a big issue in the news right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So what are we seeing with the other candidates?
So the other candidates, I think I wanted to, so Warren, she wants to stop mining and drilling on public lands. for lithium. They asked her specifically about lithium, but lithium's in Africa, so she doesn't have any control of that policy. So she's fine with. It's kind of a NIMBY problem, and that's a big problem with nuclear too. Is people have a problem with drilling and nuclear in their area, but it's okay to do it in Africa with slave labor and then on
Right.
ships and all this waste. And so I took a look. I mean, I do, yeah, because there is an environmental concern with fracking, drilling, everything, and so it's important to be considerate about that. But there's so much conflation in general between climate and the environment. Like fracking natural gas might be bad for the environment. For the climate, it's actually pretty good. It's much preferable to coal or
Yeah,
dung.
absolutely.
People use dung as an energy source in developing nations, and people
Yeah.
forget that. So that's what kind of hurt me the most about this debate, and I'll criticize Republicans too, is that they constantly said that we need to rely on science, and they were saying things that were scientifically a little backwards, in my opinion. Not
Sure. Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that's the gist. Yeah, Bernie wants. Oh, the last thing I guess is Bernie. He wants to ban fracking, which we could have that discussion, but it needs to be an intelligent discussion. And once again, it's a demand problem. We want natural gas so much. We gotta really dig deep and get those hard to reach places. Yeah, come on.
Right.
Let me get the last drip. I really think it's a demand problem, but we could have that conversation. And then he touts the
It
Green New
is.
Deal, which I really will put in the comments. There's a lot of things I'm saying we'll put in the comments. We'll put in the comments is the Green New Deal, and I encourage you to read the text of the Green New Deal because it does not make sense at all. And I would love it because we'd make a lot of money if it passes. But it's a
Yeah.
resolution, so once again, it's non-binding, and just I think it's like 14 pages, and like 10 aren't about the environment. They're about like social and medical and college issues, which are fine, but they're not related to energy. And once again,
Right.
no nuclear, which is disappointing. Because if you need
Yeah.
a Green New Deal, I think it needs to be very specific. Is we're going to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we're going to get to. It's not. It's just like a bunch of complaints all
Yeah.
compiled together. Fran.
So do you see any of these candidates, using their energy agenda as a key piece of their campaign? Because historically we've seen candidates do that, and Trump, it was a big part of his campaign, years back. Do you see any of these guys, or girls taking a firm stance on this?
They are, and I think they're taking yes, they're taking the climate side of it. And to do that, I'm okay with that, and that can be a winning approach. A lot of people do care about climate change, but they need to have an intelligent conversation about that. And we
Yeah.
need to hear nuclear. We need to hear, they talk about coming up with innovative solutions. There are a bunch of ideas out there that are underfunded. And so talk about the specific ideas of how we're going to actually cut carbon instead of just platitudes. And so
Yeah.
I definitely think whoever wins is going to go on the climate direction. And my advice to them is to please do it in an intelligent way.
Yeah. And how great would it be for our industry, folks working within deregulated markets? How great would it be for our industry if the conversation of deregulation started happening on the federal level, in these debates? If they started talking about, what their plans are for influencing states to deregulate. That's when things could really get interesting, because we're looking at, better economies, more jobs, more competition. So, not only do we need to be focusing on how, energy affects our environment, but, what it can do for our economy. I mean, I'd really like to see that conversation opened up, and I'm surprised it hasn't. It hasn't. The data that we have from deregulated market.
That's the direction it's going. I honestly think because they are calling there's a lot of like crazy legislation that's being passed by people that don't understand energy on the state level. And I think it wrote in my notes too. It's kind of like the movie Armageddon, where they're calling for crazy things. So it requires things like a deregulation to happen, because the solution
Yeah.
is going to have to come from people like us and not 90-year-olds in Washington or your
Right.
yeah. And so I do think that's the natural byproduct of where this is going is deregulation, innovation, and just solutions that are not thought of even now.
Exactly. Yeah.
These that are thought of that we actually go ahead and do, like
Agreed.
the Tesla Tower. Yeah, I
Cool.
think that was a question I actually posted on my Facebook page that I would like to ask to you. Is Jeff Bezos said he's going to donate $10 billion to the environment and climate in general. And my question to you is, how would you spend that 10 billion
Me.
legally? Yeah. With
Is it 10 billion or million
a B.
with a B? Okay.
Yeah. It goes
How would I
fast.
spend that?
Yeah.
Okay.
On energy. It's got to be on energy. It can't be
That's tough. Um,
no Cayman Islands.
yeah, that's a tough question to answer. Am I giving that money as a person with political power, or am I just an energy company? Who are you at? Like,
You're the crazy innovator. You're like Batman. Like your job is to actually, we're gonna save the world. We're gonna do a cool energy product that people are gonna benefit from. Yeah, no
man,
under the table stuff.
I could spend an hour. I could probably spend an hour answering that.
Yeah.
But I'm a firm believer in natural gas right now. I think we're the climate for natural gas has changed so much over the last 20 years. We can now derive it in a much simpler and more efficient process. And really, it's been, the issues that we've had with it have been demand related. The folks that are drilling and selling the gas are having troubles, remaining profitable because we have an oversupply of it. So I think I would continue to pour money into research towards natural gas, and continuing to find ways to improve efficiencies within generating power from it. But also, I think local generation is important. Um, you know, there's not enough generation sites that we can shop from as suppliers, right? We need to increase competition and do that by creating more opportunities for generating power. So that's going to require the markets to be a bit more free and less regulation and more opportunity for competition, because I think that's just what's going to drive prices down in our markets. And I think the more innovative companies are going to be the ones that succeed, right? But also with the focus on the climate, still a focus on the climate, but ultimately, as a country that's very much in debt, we still need to be focused on money. We need to be focused on creating a better economy for Americans. So without spending an hour diving into how I would break down that 10 billion, I think I would just really focus on natural gas and local generation.
Yeah, that makes too much sense for you to run for office, Ryan. You
Right. Yeah.
gotta stick to energy. No,
Don't
that is
worry, I'm
sensible.
never going to think about that.
And I do think that's kind of like it's not it's kind of sad that it's kind of almost forgotten history of the innovations in the natural gas space, especially
Yeah.
liquefied natural gas and fracking. For better or for worse, that was a crazy innovation that it impacted our world probably more than YouTube, believe it or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
No YouTube, no
Right.
energy, because natural gas is one of the biggest producers of electricity.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think this is a good transition into the natural gas. What's the update on the natural gas market?
Okay. Yeah. So you'll see us focusing heavily on natural gas as a way to evaluate, energy prices. When I say energy, that's just electricity and gas, right? So in order to produce electricity, we're using a good amount of natural gas depending on where you're located. This summer in Ohio, 51% of power was produced from natural gas. So natural gas, being a dominant, generation source, and also being extremely cheap, has made electricity really cheap in Ohio. You know, um, so looking at natural gas production over the last, few years, we're seeing a continual increase, right? And all of our demands, related to price come from, supply and demand, which a lot of times is being influenced by weather, right? The folks drilling the gas are really just unsure of what demand is going to be needed. So it's kind of a guess and check game that they're continually getting better at, right?
Absolutely. They can't
Uh,
predict the weather for next week. They're wrong about next
exactly.
week. Good luck for the
Right.
next season.
Right. So
Yeah.
we'll
But,
dive
but
into
how
weather a
much
little
how
bit.
important of a factor is weather, would you say?
I mean, I would say it's the number one influencer of the market. If a report came out today saying, hey, the rest of this winter is going to be substantially colder than the last 5 winters, we're going to see, a huge movement in the market, And then next Thursday, Every Thursday at 10:30, the natural gas storage report is released. Next Thursday, we probably see a huge injection into the market or into storage, right? So that's going to make an impact as well. So weather's everything, and really, the issue is we're always wrong. You know, if you watch the local weather channel, you're going to realize there's a 0% chance for rain tomorrow, and then it rains. Or it's supposed to be 50 degrees and then it's 15. So
Like today.
they're not right about the weather, but these analysts still have to consider that. When that report comes out saying, hey, it's going to be much colder than expected, you're still going to have a handful of traders who overreact and buy too much gas for their customers, which create that imbalance of supply and demand and drive prices down. So, and in recent history, the polar vortex of 2014 is what really has traders just scared. There's PTSD from that. A lot of suppliers went under. When we had those 5 very cold days in January of 14, when natural gas was tripling, that created a huge problem in the market, right? And since then,
oh yeah, I remember 2014.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
since then, any kind of weather-related news is
it's so
making a
up.
big impact on the market.
Yeah, rates triple, quadruple.
Absolutely. So looking at the increase in production, a recent interview with the executive team at Shell shows us that worldwide demand for liquefied natural gas, LNG, which is just gas cooled down to be in a liquid state rather than a gas state, that rose by 12.5% last year compared to the year before, according to Shell. So
And this source did not exist like 10 years ago.
yeah, exactly.
So this totally changed the market.
Yep, and it keeps rising, and they're saying, hey, that number is supposed to double by 2040, right? We should double the amount of liquefied natural gas that we have by 2040. So it's definitely playing a growing role in just shaping a lower carbon energy system. Which is the goal. We're using natural gas because it's lower carbon on the environment and moving away from coal a little bit. And it's just showing us that we believe in coal more and more, gas more and more, and we're going to continue to produce it.
We do. And there was a huge conflation. I hate to bring back the debate, but there was a huge conflation between fracking and natural gas. And once again, not the same thing. With natural gas, remember, it's natural. Like, it's there.
Yep.
You should not use it. And it's created,
Yep.
through thousands of years of pressure.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
many living things. It's organic.
Many people don't realize that natural gas is literally, the decomposition of plants and animals in the ocean. And, gas, the gas that we derive is coming from pressure under these rocks, of all the decomposition that's, oozing through these rocks and creating something that we can derive from. So, it is natural. And as long as our oceans are remaining healthy somewhat, we're going to have access to that,
And it's being resourceful. You're being an environmentalist you have an energy source there. Don't go to China. You can stay in Ohio. And and so on the supply side, do you think how much of an effect do you think LNG will have in the market if it's going to grow by 50% in 2040?
I mean, back in the early 2000s, from 2000 to 2012, we saw natural gas prices just having huge spikes. We in 1999, gas was trading at $1.60, $1.70, $1.90 is where it is right now. And we're in a good spot. But then we have the hurricanes, Hurricane Ike, Katrina, all had a big impact on our ability to derive natural gas offshore. And so now we have a much more efficient and safer way of deriving natural gas to where these hurricanes or these big weather events are not going to have as much of an impact because our supply is so solid. Right?
That happened last year in Chicago when it was negative 20 degrees. I was telling everyone, and my apologies to a lot of people out there. I genuinely was saying, buy now, buy. It's going to be negative 50 with wind chill. And it really didn't have an effect.
Exactly. So we're seeing a much more, less volatile market
Yeah.
than we have in the past, and that's just we're more solid when it comes to natural gas. So I see natural gas prices remaining more steady and even trending downward over the next decade or so.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what the EIA says. And Ron, my question to you too is because you touched on this earlier where you talked about how that producers are not making as much money as they used to. At what point are they just going to be like, hey, cut it out. We're gonna shut it down and we're not going to
yeah,
produce
that's a big question mark
because we're
right
pretty
now.
low.
And it's, that's when we really start to see the market make an aggressive shift back up, right? When they just say, hey, we're giving this stuff away for free, we're going bankrupt,
Yeah.
that's when that's when we have another change in supply, which is going to bring, the market back up. So, I don't know at what point that would be. I would say if we get below $1.70, then you might start seeing that happening.
Yeah, I
But
said that we both said that I think at $1.90. Like this is
yeah,
crazy to me. And
right.
what was I gonna say? I forgot what I was gonna say. But no, yeah, this is insane that we're
It is.
at this level, and it's
Oh
sustained, and
yeah.
it could be a change in a paradigm shift just because of technology. But
Yep.
just wow. At this, yeah. Oh, I remember I was gonna say February was the lowest natural gas prices in 2 decades.
Oh, was it
Yeah,
as a whole?
yeah. And I'll try to find a link
Wow.
to that article and put in the comments.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it is a great buying opportunity both for gas and electric. At least with our personal clientele, any customer coming to an end within 18 months, we can confidently recommend that you should at least look to extend, because unless you bought your power and gas in March of 2016 when that market was here, in the same level as it is now, odds are you're going to be able to get a much lower price now. So definitely something to consider. But there's also reason to sit back and wait and be agile and see what the market does, because as long as the EIA keeps reporting an increase in storage week over week, I don't I'm not seeing much reason to rush into doing something. Right. I think natural gas is clearly trending down and electric is following it. The heat ratio is still staying strong. I think there's good opportunity for continual downward movement.
I agree, but on the same token, I'm just a very conservative person, where I do think the risks outweigh the reward. We're
Yeah,
like how much lower can it physically go? Like
right.
I know basis to be negative if demand, like that's somewhat possible, but I do think we've seen prices triple, quadruple, but I don't think we can go below $1.
Right.
Like,
No,
like they're gonna have to shut it down at $1.
agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
so there's a phrase that my father likes to say, which I love, and is you don't want to eat like a bird, make droppings like an elephant.
and right. I've heard you say that before.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but in different with 4 letter or five, yeah, with a little.
agreed. Yeah, and I mean, I definitely err on the side of caution when it comes to especially larger clients, who would be taking on substantial risk to maybe save a couple extra bucks when really it could cost them a bunch. But if you've got the time to play with and you're more of a risk taker, there is opportunity for movement down. I think in those situations, what you need to pay attention to is points of technical resistance. And in the natural gas market, those are every 10 cents. So at $2, you're going to see, strong resistance. We saw it earlier this week on Monday and Tuesday. The market moved up from 93 to 97, and then it flirted with $2, but it kept bouncing back down, right? Um, Once it breaks past $2, we're going to see our next technical resistance point at 210. Breaking past that is when I would be a little bit nervous, right? That's when I would start saying, hey, we don't want to play this game. We just broke 2 technical resistance levels. And it works in the same way going down, right? So we're kind of flirting with 190 right now. And these traders just have a tough time making, large trades to push past that technical resistance. So that's something to be mindful of when you're procuring for your customers, those points of technical resistance.
So it seems like 170 is when you would say, okay, I'm out. We won.
Yep,
I hit blackjack 3 times in a row. Let's cash in our chips. And on the flip
exactly.
side, once it hits 210 at the NYMEX Henry Hub, then that's when you've lost enough where you're like, okay, let's
Agreed.
have enough money for gas to get
Yep.
home from this casino.
Yep. And I mean, there are forces outside of weather and storage that can impact natural gas as well, though. And, going back
Politics,
to,
yeah.
politics, what, when we get closer to election time and the general public starts to, portray a better idea of who's likely going to be elected, when that goes back and forth, we're going to see changes in the market. We're going to see the market react to that because every market reacted to Trump being elected, right? Immediately.
Yeah.
Everyone's opinion of how the economy is going to work changed. Everyone's opinion of how energy is going to be ran changed. So that's something to definitely be aware of as a professional within the energy industry. And I'm sure you can speak a little bit further to what impacts could occur as a result of just changes in opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Because it really the president himself like he has impact, but people forget the president appoints thousands of people. And so the change in like the EPA and FERC are two things that I would look for, and they release their mission statements every year, and they kind of say what direction they're going in, and that's what I would keep my eye on as an energy broker, is look at FERC, look at the EPA, because they really set the conditions. Because even if you have technology, they might say, hey, like for instance, every Democratic candidate wants to ban fracking. For it, against it, doesn't matter. That would raise prices. And so it's important to kind of be ahead of the game because
Yep,
elections happen in
absolutely.
November, but they don't actually come into power in January. And then they got to appoint, the market does react on news, obviously, but the actual production itself, there is kind of a in-between time. So it's really important. Elections have consequences, and it's really important to not just keep your eye on the candidate itself, but who they appoint to several positions.
Yeah.
Because there are Democratic parties that politicians, you'll hear this often. He's bought out by big oil and big ass. Yeah, some of that's a little true. There's a few
Yep.
of them that probably wouldn't. They say they'll ban fracking, but they'll change their mind on day one. You see that a lot in politics.
Right.
So that's why with debates, it like I watch it for there's some knowledge, there's some info, but there's a lot of entertainment because the proof is in the
Yeah.
pudding. Most
Right.
of them won't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like most of them won't be the nominee, and they might not even win president. But it's really important to keep your eye on the actual substance, bills and agencies, because bills are important too. And Schoolhouse Rock has a good song. If you ever saw I'm Just a Bill, of like what happens, from bill to actual legislation. And so
Love
there's
that
such
movie. I can't think of the
yeah.
song.
Yeah, I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm
Oh
sitting
yeah,
on
yeah.
the yeah. So bills are written by people like us, like we write the bills, and then they're edited by people like legislative interns who are given to the congressperson, and then they're set in their small committee, the energy committee, gets voted there, then gets voted in the House, passes the House, then gets turned over to the Senate, has to pass the Senate, then gets signed by the president. So there's a lot of time in between. And so that's the good news on the policy side, is it's not like the weather where you're not just
Right.
hit by a hurricane out of nowhere. You do see it coming.
Exactly.
And there are a lot of
Yeah.
like weighty bills that will have crazy effects in the market one way or the other. And they're being crafted as we speak. And in my home state, Illinois, the big one, which doesn't exist yet, is CEJA, the Clean Energy Jobs Act, which is an extension of FEJA, the Future Energy Jobs Act. And it's a little the ideas are a little crazy right now, but it doesn't exist yet. And it's an important one to keep your eye on and talk to your House, to your Congress, your state reps and state senators to make sure that they do it in an intellectual way.
Absolutely.
It doesn't exist yet, but they want 100% clean energy by 2050, which is
Yeah.
fine, but where are the nuclear plants at?
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's not possible. They want 2 million solar panels, which great for us because we'll install them. And
Right. Yeah, we can help you guys out.
I don't care. I'm not complaining, but it's just a little crazy, and there's no plan to recycle them. But I digress. But that's an important one for anyone watching to keep their eye on is the Clean Energy Jobs Act at the state level of Illinois. Yeah, because the way I would describe it is I would say it's like energy. It's kind of like a table where every if you're missing one leg, weather is another, market, and yeah, so a three-legged table. No, demand. Demand is probably the fourth leg of the table. And it's funny because the head of the EPA, Rick Perry, is the one who messed up the. It's like there's four departments I'd cut. This education, health, and I don't know. Oops. Yeah. But I would say those are the four legs of the table. Would you agree, or would you add some legs, take some legs away?
I would agree. Yeah, I'd agree.
Because the demand side is key. Because we could just culturally say, hey, we're going to go away from electricity.
Right.
Imagine if we switch to cryptocurrency, which should be an episode for another day, and how much that would increase demand. Instead of using paper, we're literally using energy. That's what cryptocurrency is.
Yeah, and I mean, our grid couldn't handle that right now.
It couldn't. But yeah.
We don't have the bandwidth for that right now.
That's the demand leg, I'd say.
Right.
Because if you want it, we'll do it.
Yeah, we can help you.
Ryan, call me. Yeah. We're on our way. Yeah. I'm Ben Affleck or Bruce Willis.
All right. All right.
Yeah. But so anything else? I think we're at the end of the first episode.
Yeah. I think that's it for today, man.
I'm excited for next week. There's a lot of stuff I said I'll put in the comments. I'm gonna have to put in the comments.
Yeah.
So sure. Check the comments, like this, share this, hit us up on LinkedIn, MySpace.
Give us feedback. Let us know if there's anything you want us to talk about specifically. No.
Yeah, and if you there's a lot. I've made a lot of controversial comments, and so have you, Ryan. I mean, not controversial, but like strong stances.
Could be debated.
So yeah, if you disagree,
sure.
disagree in the comments.
We're open to it for sure.
We welcome trolls, and we definitely will bring on people that have both perspectives.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and have a good one.
Thank you, guys. Peace.
Yeah, we can edit. All right.
Cool.
I had fun. We'll see.
Yeah. We'll get better at it as we go. I think it was good.
Yeah, absolutely. I had fun.
Yeah, I think it was good. I mean,
and I think we both had chunks.
A good podcast kind of just sounds like two guys sitting in a room talking and catching up, right?
Absolutely. And I liked how we kind of both had our chunks. Where I went off on politics and you went off on natural gas. Yeah. And I like that.
You were cutting in and out a little bit towards the end, and it sounded like, I don't know if it was from my computer or your mic, but I could still hear you. It just sounded like you were underwater for a second, so I couldn't tell what you were saying.
How long?
You might be able to hear when you listen to the recording. If you can't hear it, then it's probably just my computer, but it was towards the end.
Well, I guess we might have to end early. Yeah, or I could re-record or something.
It happened a couple times, but it wasn't bad enough to take away from being able to hear what you were saying. Right?
Honestly, watch the first Gary Vee wine review, and I think we beat that. That was so terrible, but he turned that into a multi-million-dollar thing.
Yeah, we just need content, man. That's it.
Absolutely, and let the haters tell us what's wrong.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right, brother. Well, I gotta hustle up and get ready for this. I gotta hustle up and get ready for this meeting. I gotta prep.
All right, for sure. Kick some ass. Yeah. And I'll keep you updated. And I think Sunday be a good day.
All right, brother. Sounds good to me.
You can't wait till the next debate. Be too late. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, brother.
All right, thanks.
Talk to you soon.
Sure. Peace.
Peace.